One of the key aspects in artificial intelligence, machine learning, in the last few years has been around productionizing and scaling the use of these services. And for that, at Data Futurology, we've created an event which we've run a couple years now. We call it Advancing AI. So we want to be advancing the deployment of these systems in production at scale. We also want to advance the use of these capabilities throughout the organizations. And we always cover the most relevant and best topics that we can find. And we're definitely keen to see you there in the next one. This year's 2022's Advancing AI is going to be in person in Melbourne, April 6th and 7th at Crown Promenade. I hope to see you there. The lineup is looking fantastic. Please check it out on datafuturology.com. It's all going to be geared around productionizing these systems, scaling them, and increasing the adoption of AI within our organizations and outside. April 6th and 7th, Melbourne, Crown Promenade, Advancing AI with Data Futurology. Thank you so much. See you there. I wanted to say a big thank you to our sponsor, Talent Insights. Talent Insights are Australia's leading data specialist recruitment business. They are experts in recruitment strategy and delivery for analytics and data teams. They are the go-to recruitment business for all your data roles in Australia, and they can help both with permanent hires and short-term project-focused data resources. I've used Talent Insights in the past, and I've always found them fantastic to work with. Visit them at talentinsights.com.au. Hi everyone, this is Felipe Flores. Welcome to Data Futurology. Today I'm here with the wonderful Kari Jones. She's the head of analytics and insights at Countdown, which is Woolworths in New Zealand. And we are very excited to be speaking with you, Kari. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Felipe. Really excited to be talking with you today. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So if you can kick us off by telling us a little bit about your background and your journey to date. It's been an amazing journey. You have so much experience. Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
Okay, wow. Goodness, where do you start? I emigrated to New Zealand in 2011, so just over 10 years ago now. I was in sort of fairly technical roles in the UK. Started to get into data warehousing when I was in the UK. That's even at university, I was exploring some of the data papers, data modeling papers. They were the ones that were always the most interesting for me. After sort of doing a stint in other types of programming, really sort of fell into the world of e-commerce and some of the analytics that was required for e-commerce right back in the day, so to speak. And that's where my passion for analytics and data and really seeing how analytics can drive business started to form. Plus, I suppose I was really interested in some of the data modeling and how you actually tackle some of these challenges from a reporting and an analytics perspective. But look, when I moved to New Zealand, I had an opportunity to continue to stay, fairly technical in a type of consulting type of role, or to actually to pivot slightly. And so everything else was changing in my life at the time. So changing countries, changing jobs, why not just change the type of work that I did as well? I mean, let's just go for it, right? And so I sort of threw myself into the deep end and joined PwC and joined management consulting in the technology consulting part of the firm, and stayed there for sort of four or 5 years, and just got into all sorts of different industries where we could apply data strategy to health or to defense or education. And, I think those consulting types of companies, you get exposed to so many different things, so many different industries, some incredibly bright people you get to work with. I get exposed to so many ideas. For me, it was the best move I could possibly make. It was hard at the time, really tough first sort of 3 to 6 months. But I look back on that time incredibly fondly. And just again, the learning opportunity, the exposure, and the friends that you make in that kind of world. And then look, I just I'd created that many roadmaps and that many strategies and run that many sort of data governance types of activities in a consulting capacity. I really thought that, well, let's just see if any of this stuff that I'm actually producing works, right? Yeah. So I've got to sort of eat my own dog food, so to speak. So I switched over and I changed from being in a consulting organization, to being industry side. Mm-hmm. And that's where I started to, again, continuing to learn, continuing to start working with senior executives on a regular basis, really starting getting to expose to different types of leadership through, building business cases, building cases for change, gathering, building sort of cohorts of the willing, when I was at NZME and then Air New Zealand, and then New Zealand Post was my, and then where I am now at head of analytics at Countdown. So yeah, it's been a logical journey, and it feels like one that sort of built nicely on the other. And I take the different experiences in the different industries from one place to the next. I think what I found is that I really love where the digital world meets the physical world. So if that's airplanes or parcels or food, it's, for me, that's super exciting, that the digital and physical coming together, and the proximity to the customer as well. So I think that's what really floats my boat and gets me up in the morning. And I really enjoy trying to work out, well, how does analytics really drive value for our customers today?
Amazing. And I love that journey of, being technical to then advising people on their journeys, on their strategies. And now, in the last few years, moving to roles where you're internal, doing the end-to-end, and because I always think that there's a component of work that needs to be done internally, kind of like before you would get consultants, and then there's the work that consultants would help, and then there's work afterwards to implement it. How did that transition work for you? What new learnings did you find coming in-house at such senior levels? And what were some of the things that you had to learn at that point?
There's some good questions in there. I think, I think when I first stepped into my first head of role at NZME, I think what I noticed sort of immediately was I didn't have people to peer review what I was doing. And it was initially quite daunting and quite lonely, dare I say it. Yeah. And so I was like, well, how do I know what having come from a consulting environment where everyone wants to review your work, and everyone wants to create this incredible product for your client, to it just being you was a big step. Yes. And so in that instance, I actually reached out to someone who I knew in my network. I didn't know him that well. I'm happy to share the name. It was Peter Gavin, who's another very experienced analytics leader. And I reached out to Peter, and we sat down on a number of occasions. He shared with me, and he gave me that peer review, and he gave me that guidance that I was missing. Taking the first step into that sort of senior leadership. And yes, we would talk about data strategy, but we'd also talk about, how do you create buy-in, or how do you land your case for your change, or your investment, or your business case. Something that Peter had built a lot of experience up doing at ASB, and in other roles since then. So I think that was an important step. But ultimately, I think after after I'd done some time with NZME in that space, I think moving into moving over into Air New Zealand gave me a different leadership opportunity. Working in a slightly bigger team, working for, I've been very lucky. I've had some fantastic bosses, fantastic leaders that I've had the opportunity to work for. And Justin Plumridge at Air New Zealand gave me the opportunity to take the customer analytics team and take them through a bit of a transformation into an end-to-end sort of data science team.
Wow.
That's quite a step, especially not being a data scientist. And so myself, but being, trying to sort of grow my people leadership craft and my change management craft, and trying to grow and maximize the young professionals that we had in the team and take the organization's next step into sort of that more advanced analytics. I enjoy that learning by doing. And so, I think it was just some fantastic learnings. You just had to throw yourself at it and grab the opportunities and yourself, and then surround yourself with people that know a little bit. So you can guide yourself on the next step. Yeah.
Really key components there. That some of the things that I was picking up where you were telling us about that is, on one side, I think one of the learnings for people that come into leadership is that sometimes people might have a very firm view on, say, what the strategy should be or how a project should be done. And that comes from a technical background and knowledge that is obviously very, very sound. But sometimes it comes as a bit of a shock to the organization, or sometimes, especially if you're trying to do something new, and it sounded like you're I guess melding your approaches with the organizational approaches to create that to create something that can progress going forward, that can get adoption and get backing. Definitely something sounded as something very interesting. And then the other one is that stood out to me was being able to lead people in areas where you might not be an expert in. And that's definitely, I see it as an evolution of leadership that most leaders that get more senior, it's something that they have to develop. And you've done that so well. So could you tell us a little bit about either of those, either blending the technical approaches with where the organization is at and how to get that adoption, or the leading people that come from areas outside of your background and expertise, and be as a result be able to have more impact in the organization?
Yeah. Well, let's take the second one for a little bit. Look, I love diversity of thought. Like, one of the questions I ask myself is, how can I be wrong? I love getting a different perspective. I think I got very comfortable very, very quickly, I suppose, through the consulting activities, both technical consulting and then, in management consulting, and actually not being the person that knows everything, but actually the going from being, the person that might know something to that, bring that curious person. Okay. And so I think I got quite comfortable quite quickly saying, I don't know what that means, but I'm pretty sure I can find someone that can help us. But what I rapidly found was that I had a skill for translation, and I had a skill and patience for sitting down with some of our really deep technical experts, working with them, like, help me understand what that means, like, help me put that into plain English, help me understand what's the business impact of that. Okay, I've got it right. Now I can sell that. Okay, or I can go and advocate for that. I can champion for that. I think another skill that I was able to learn, similar to what you're doing, with me now, is that ability to summarize. What are the key takeaways from our conversation? Allowing some of my technical team to talk, and allowing the conversations to go off in different directions, but then to help them bring it back and to identify the three things that we need to do. So I suppose I'm comfortable with my own lack of knowledge, I suppose, in other areas, but I'm also just so super keen to learn, and also to support and to advocate and do the bit that I'm good at, and allow my team to stay good at the things that they want to stay good at. I think that's that team piece, right? It's everyone playing to their strengths, and having that real strong mutual respect for the strengths that each person brings to the team. I think philosophically, that's where I sit. Like I don't know where that comes from. I don't think that's something that I was brought up with. It's just, I'm excited by the differences that other people can bring to the conversation.
Yeah, and excited by learning, which is very, very important and very refreshing to see leaders like that. I remember in my career, I went from a place where the culture was that senior leaders would almost pretend that they knew everything, that they were never surprised. And then I went to another workplace where the data science team would present to the CFO on a fortnightly basis. And we would get almost every time, we would get the CFO literally putting his hand up and saying, I didn't know that before. Did other people know it? And I remember finding that so refreshing, that, there's the humility, the curiosity, it brings people together. I see that so strongly in you as well.
There's a couple of things. Like, I really encourage my team and my leadership group to speak up. We have a value in our leadership group and the team that it's your professional responsibility to have an opinion. So we're in a meeting, give us your opinion. This is the time to do it. Don't walk out the door and then have a side conversation with someone that can't do anything with it. So, and it's, I suppose, our job to create that safety within that environment, invite people into the conversation so they feel safe to give that professional opinion. And I also coach my leaders to ask the questions that you don't know the answer to. Be comfortable with that, because believe me, if you don't know the answer, or it's a question that you want to ask, there's probably 3 other people in the room that also are interested. So you're doing them a favor as well. So I suppose it's that idea of that learning culture, a learning organization, a curious organization. One that encourages questions. And I suppose it's just about helping us position those questions from a lens and from a perspective of curiosity, rather than trying to pinhole or find pigeonhole or find the flaws in a particular argument.
Yes. And something that you said there that is so important is creating the psychological safety for people to be able to voice their opinions. So it sounds like you're very deliberate in creating the psychological safety so people can speak up, and then creating the expectation that this is a safe space, and now it's your responsibility to have an opinion and speak up. Where could you tell us a bit about where that came from for you? How you developed those that philosophy, some of the benefits that you've seen. Tell us a little bit more about those components.
Yeah, I suppose for a long time I've done quite a lot of work on myself, understanding how I come across. You can tell, I've got a lot of energy. I love sharing an opinion. I love sharing a perspective. I love getting into a really meaty discussion. But actually, there's a downside to that, and especially in a leadership role. And so you have to be really careful about when you express the opinion. And I didn't realize that in some of my, in some of my earlier career. But it's it's through, I suppose, doing things like MBTI or doing different types of sort of leadership assessments where you learn about yourself, you learn about other people, and you start to learn how you're different and how you impact others and how you can work with other people to get the best out of them and get the best out of the group. But it starts very much from yourself. This gentleman called Lionel Lopez gave me the gift of feedback, which doesn't feel like a gift at the time. But he shared with me some feedback of how I came across and how people perceived me. And it was fairly brutal at the time. And so I had to decide what I was going to do with that. And so I decided to really absorb it and decide whether, I don't want to come across like that. I don't want people to perceive me like that, regardless. So I need to switch. I need to change, and I need to change my approach. And so I went away and looked at some assessments like the Hogan's Dark Side assessment, and my big learning out of something like was that my energy and my passion and my my drive can be overplayed, and in those instances it doesn't maximize the power of the team. It disempowers, not empowers.
Wow.
And just that learning has enabled me to think about sitting back, allowing, moving into that facilitatory leadership style, okay, that allows others to come to the front. So specifically with my leadership group now, we talked about psychological safety. We've made time to learn about one another. And initially when someone says, we don't feel like we've got strong psychological safety, it can really sort of it can bring up quite a defensive response. Like, oh, what do you mean we don't feel psychologically safe? I feel like we've got a great relationship. And I'm again lucky enough to have some wonderful members of my leadership group, and in my next one-on-one with one of the team, what I remember her saying, she was very direct with me, and she said to me, on the topic of psychological safety, Kari, she said, it's not all about you. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I thought the leader was the person that drove the psychological safety. And she says, yes, but it's also about the team being psychologically safe with one another. And we all have to take a level of responsibility for making everyone feel safe and heard within that environment. You're part of the solution, but we're all part of the solution as well. And I was like, wow, not only can you learn from the people, above you, but you can learn from the people that you surround yourself with as well. So we work together with an organization called Spring Leadership. We work with them every 3 weeks. We have 2 to 3 hours together as a leadership group, and we go through different types of activities where we talk. We talk and we learn about each other, and we grow our confidence about expressing opinions. And so in a couple of weeks, we're going to be tackling the topic of conflict and how we can introduce conflict deliberately into a team environment to stimulate creativity and innovation.
I love that. So many gold nuggets there. Definitely love the fact that psychological safety is in a many to many that everyone needs to help create it for everyone else, because generally the recipient of the feedback, in order to get that feedback, they need to create psychological safety with the other person, so that person can provide that feedback. So that's great that your leadership team is at that level to be having those conversations and getting that level or improvement at that level. That's fantastic. The other thing I was going to say is that it was in the past I've heard the phrase says, what got you here won't get you there. And it really reminded me of your journey, that essentially what you were saying is that your passion and your drive and your commitment, it definitely helped you rise to leadership. But it was so interesting that then in leadership, those were strengths that sometimes I think of strengths as having a volume on a car radio. Sometimes you want the volume in full blast. Sometimes you want it like at mid-level, low level. Sometimes you want the radio off. And I find that with everyone's strengths has a it's a double-edged sword where they can be overplayed, and becoming aware of the negative implications of overplaying it and understanding when to turn up the volume to the right level is definitely a key development point in leadership, and something that obviously you already done. And so interesting to see that what got you there wasn't going to help you get further, and you had to do that introspection, that learning, and progress from there. That's amazing. Yeah, congratulations.
I think you stumble as a leader all the time, and through it's kind of what you do at that point. Do you beat yourself up that you fell over, or do you get up and do you bounce forward? Do you ask for help? Do you ask for feedback? Do you ask for support? I've probably done all of those things at different points in my career, and I think my sense of it is it's that while I don't like using the word failures, because I don't really see them as failures, because I've done something with it. It now puts me in a really interesting spot to support some of my less experienced leaders in my leadership group, and helping them navigate through their first, people leadership roles, stepping out of being, senior data scientists into strategic analytics partners or delivery leads or product owners, helping them, I suppose, see the value that they bring differently. Some of them have struggled and wrestled with the idea that, hey, the value that I brought an organization was the code that I cut, the thing that I put into production, the individual contribution, and helping them shift that actually now it's about how you support others do that, and maintain a standard, and be there as a sounding board and as a question. And you can see them wrestling with it initially. And then it's been wonderful, when we go through our mid-year conversations and our mid-year reflections, when I ask them, what was your biggest achievement? And you hear a change in them, and you hear them say, oh, I loved it when, one of the team stood up and did that thing. Or I loved it when, I just gave them just enough information and then they just ran with it and they delivered this great result for the stakeholder. And so they're proud of what the team is achieving, and they've made that shift from being proud of what they've achieved. So that's, for me, is, whoa. I mean, for me, that's the fun. Like, that is the fun bit of leadership, whether it's in analytics or in anything.
Being able to being able to help the team grow, deliver more, have a bigger impact, and feel proud for the contributions that others are making, and to a point you almost become like the background person / cheerleader / coach, that is helping enable that, but not you're not the player on the field anymore.
You're absolutely right, and I think that does highlight a different challenge as a leader around managing personal brand. If you're always orchestrating and always facilitating the performance of others and supporting them in their growth, actually, you need to be, there's certain things that you need to actually lead yourself because of the personal brand in the organization. And you need to sort of pick and choose the relationships that you build, the visibility that you have, and the forums at which you attend. Otherwise, as you say, Felipe, you can end up being quite unseen. And so it's that sort of that facilitatory leading from the back does, it's everything is in balance, right?
Yes.
So it's about allowing the team to take some credit, and dare I say it, at some point, I have to be at the front of the at the front of the bus, or at the front of the team, waving the flag as well. So it's just about picking and choosing the right way and the right forum to do it.
So much. This is one that I really struggle with, where my natural tendency is to support the team as a coach and as a cheerleader, and I would have one-on-one conversations with team members and help them overcome challenges. Try to give them principles that they can apply on project after project, or on ways to work with multiple stakeholders. And I love doing that. And I've noticed at least in the past year, maybe in the past couple of years, that I'm not doing enough of the other side of being deliberate about choosing the initiatives that I do lead, instead of support and coach and cheerlead. And as you say, like, it's so important for the presence in the organization, for the personal branding. And I have noticed a shift in that perspective. So that's one for me that I'm thinking about at the moment, and about to start making improvements and change. So it's great to hear you say that, because that's exactly what I need to do.
And look, there's some tools that we use to do that. Okay, so the showcase, the quarterly showcase, a great example of an opportunity for me to either stand up at the front of the showcase or at the end of the showcase, and then with the team leading out on the work that the impact that they've had over the last 3 months. So a very sort of simple way where we can share, I don't know if credit's the right word, but share the accolades, sharing the success, if you like, of the team. We'll also produce things like a monthly impact report. Nice. It's about highlighting the work that the team has done, the impact, the business outcomes that we've had. And I will send that out, and where appropriate, I'll present it to an executive group on a sort of a quarterly basis. So I think it's about just picking and choosing, the right forums where I'm best suited. Again, going back to that comment around playing to the strength. Well, what's the purpose of that? I'm able to champion, I'm able to soundbite, I'm able to summarize, I'm able to read the audience well, to sort of to really hone the message. And yes, I'm not the only one on the team that can do that. There's a few of us that they're strong in that space. But it's not just about visibility and brand. There's a that's just part of it. The other part is about keeping the visibility of the team high, and reminding everyone around that it's a team effort, and that yes, business partnering, our business colleagues, our analytics colleagues, our data scientists and our data engineers, that collaboration is creating some magic. Yes,
so true, so important, and one of the factors that I'm adding to the list of I guess of dimensions to look at to choose when to get involved as leading initiatives is the ones where I can support them better with my experience. So something that I know or have done before, that maybe the team is not as strong in, And obviously, beyond that, it's having a bit of a strategic lens and having what the importance is for the organization or the type of peers that are involved and things like that, based on the relationships that you're seeking to build or maintain. But additionally, once where I either have experience that I know the team can leverage or they can help with, or things that I'm looking to learn more about. And sometimes I feel like, I don't know if you feel the same, like sometimes as leaders, we almost don't give ourselves enough opportunity to learn. I think you're definitely better than most, I think, in that space. But sometimes, we leaders get stuck on the either the delivery, the execution, or the outcomes, and sometimes leave by the wayside a bit of learning and investing on themselves based on what they're curious about and what they want to learn. I think you really do well in this area. How do you feel about it? How would you self-evaluate on this side?
Yeah, look, I think when I first joined Countdown about 12 months ago, maybe a little bit longer now, I didn't necessarily go in with a very sort of formalized 90-day plan. I actually sat down with my coach and she said, look, the last job you had, you did this very sort of big, sort of significant 90-day plan. She said, you know what to do. Don't overthink this. And so I spent the first, I suppose, 12 months recruiting, getting the team in place, but also really getting quite knee deep in the delivery, really understanding the types of projects that we were doing, creating a one way, same way, best way approach to delivery. And we're not there yet, but we're always improving, but just creating a cadence that's well understood, doing regular reviews. So we just build these ceremonies, like this is the rhythm that we get into. So that is a big change exercise, right? That you have to be involved with, that you have to drive, that you have to champion. Well, not have to, but get to. It's part of the building a new culture within the team. But I think in that first, there was so much to do, and the organization has got so many different stakeholders and so much activity and so much demand. To sort of start to, after about a year, I kind of started to realize, wow, we need to actually start getting out of that hamster wheel, that day to day, and start to look a little bit further ahead. And so give yourself that permission to get up onto that strategic balcony, and you have to do that deliberately. Otherwise, you'll just be in day to day, every day. And so I've done that. My leadership group feel comfortable with me doing that. They grab me when they want impediments kind of removed and when we have to sort of navigate more difficult stakeholder conversations. But it gives me the opportunity to get up, but it also gives me the opportunity to do that professional development work. It gives me that breathing room. And it also gives me a chance to role model. So I'll tell the team what professional development I'm doing. I tell them that I'm spending time doing it, because the expectation is that they are also spending time every week on their professional development. They get to choose what that is to a certain extent, but that might, and we support them, in those areas. So it's key that I role model, but it's also good. I enjoy it too. And so what that looks like is some analytics stuff. Mainly through good conversations with industry peers, internationally, but also, webinars, but also learning about the grocery retail industry. And so again, through books or, podcasts and things like this. So I think I'm trying to stay across, across what's going on in the industry from an analytics industry, but also what's happening in the grocery retail industry and what's happening in the States. Whereas, and I think those two things are really key to be able to bring together, where analytics can play a big, impactful role.
Great. That is excellent. And your Your answer there triggered a question for me about reporting lines for analytics. So I wanted to ask you about your experience with reporting, having analytics reporting into different parts of the business, and how is it for you at the moment too?
Look, I feel very lucky, right? Countdown's made a great decision where analytics is under the strategy and transformation business function, under the director of strategy and transformation, Josh Gluckman. That is well positioned. Okay, well positioned because we're really close to the business strategy, where we're involved very early on in the program. He's a great advocate and champion for analytics. Okay, and so he's a great question asker, and he drives a lot of conversation of how analytics can play a role. So I think that's what's really good about it is it's agnostic. Strategy, being in strategy and transformation alongside our agile counterparts, is agnostic. It means because we support the business end to end, and we don't just support our digital part of our business. We support the operations as well. So it's well positioned from that perspective. But I think ultimately it's about what your chief or what your director, his personality or her personality, and how much she is able to advocate and champion your work and position you appropriately and bring you or your team members into the right forums. I think that's more important than the actual location of analytics within the organization. Yes.
I think the internal sales and marketing of analytics and the analytics function is something that can be easily put to the wayside, and people focus on the delivery, which is great, and on getting the outcomes. But sometimes those outcomes are not shared enough within the organization to get the reach or the impact that the work could otherwise have. So I think what you said there is supremely important to have both leaders that do focus on that bring the analytics team into the conversations at the right time, and obviously having the head of the analytics function focus on that too. Do you have a similar perspective? Do you share that view?
Yeah, look, definitely, and I think one of the things that I think we're really trying to drive is our strategic insights component. And again, that's something that my boss advocates for getting us involved with. So we're not just a dashboarding, reporting, data science, modeling function. We're a strategic insights function as well. And we really see that as a game changer for our organization. I think, we're working hard about how we do that. How do you actually create a strategic insight? How do you do that? How do you drive action and change from the work that you're doing? And so, most of the time people talk about insights, but they're actually talking about observations. And they create facts. Well, most people could have derived those facts, but an insight is a truly aha kind of moment, telling your executive or your senior stakeholders something they didn't know before. And I think that's where we're trying to make that shift, because I think that's where, again, it's not quite uncharted ground, but it's game-changing ground. It's influential ground. It's bridging the gap between technical knowledge and business knowledge. It's bringing together that ability to be able to story tell and to influence. Areas that I think for many analysts have been undervalued and underplayed for a long time. But actually, if we want action and if we want people to change, there's a story and there's an influence and then there's an insight that all has to be wrapped up together, to drive that. That's something it's a big push for us at the moment.
And what do you think are because finding insights is generally a big challenge. What do you think are some of the components that can help increase the likelihood of finding an insight? Or what's some of the recipe that can help create more insights?
Yeah, look, I think there's some basics in there around, well, I want your analysts to have a business curiosity. I wonder what that means, or I don't know what that means. I wonder why that has happened. And an ability to be able to ask a question. That's kind of ticket to the game stuff, I think, now. I think some of the stuff where we are, or some of the areas where we're trying to focus a little bit more, is the communication, with the upfront communication with the stakeholder. What's the hypothesis you're trying to test? What do you believe to be true? What's the real problem that we think we've got here? Okay, and so having some of those really sort of deep questions to extract information from your stakeholders as to why we're doing the work in the first place, I think can lead an analyst into that, into insights land rather than an observation land.
Yes.
I think that's huge, right? Because it's often there's a dare I say, a power gap between an analyst and their stakeholder.
Yes.
And so a lot of our time goes into supporting our analysts or partnering them with more experienced people to be able to ask some of those questions, to give them the confidence, but also to prepare the stakeholder that we are going to ask those questions.
Yes.
And actually, it's not okay just to ask for something because it's nice to know. There's a lot of demand, and we need to do stuff that's impactful. So, and again, it's a team effort. You bring your bit to the party, we'll bring our bit to the party, and we'll make some magic.
I love it. I love that. And I just realized the time, actually. I can't believe we've gone through an hour, but I think that's an excellent point, an excellent note to end on. I think it's I want to thank you, Kari, so much for sharing your knowledge, your experience, your perspectives, your philosophy, and your approach. It's been really refreshing to hear your take, and it's something that I personally think that more of the industry should spend time in the things that you've discussed, thinking about similar approaches and putting those into action. So thank you so much for spending the time with us today, sharing all that. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope that you got a lot out of this discussion. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel so more people can find out about the challenges that leaders have in the analytics and AI space. And that's what we're trying to share in Data Futurology. So please like and subscribe. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Thank you so much.